musical event. We're now live on YouTube as well. Happy Douglas Week, everyone. Everyone who's joining now. And I guess we'll kick off, will we? So happy Douglas Week, everyone. My name is Dr. Caroline Schroeder. I'm one of the core organizers here of Douglas Week 2021. I'm here with Sarah McCready and Kristen Leary and all the fantastic musicians. And I just wanted to say thank you for joining us tonight. We're so delighted that you can join us tonight here to celebrate Frederick Douglas. The last 2.5 days have been amazing, absolutely incredible. Everything has gone really beyond our wildest dreams and hopes. And I'm so happy to welcome you all to this wonderful musical event tonight. And before I hand over to Sarah McCready and Donald Kearney later on, I want to just mention a few little things about housekeeping, just so that you know, this event will be about 2 hours long. So that's going to be awesome. And we would encourage you to ask questions. So we will not have a Q&A session at the end. We'll have a little Q&A box. If you look on the bottom of your screen, you'll see a little Q&A box, and you can pop in your questions, whatever you like. So be curious, ask away whenever you're ready. And we'll be monitoring that chat here as the Douglas Week team, and we'll pass on all of your questions to the speakers. And also this session will be recorded, so it will be on YouTube. We're live on YouTube now, and it will be on our YouTube channel afterwards, just for your information. And before I hand over to Sarah now, I'll hand over quickly to Kristen Leary to say a few words as well.
Thanks, Caroline, and hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us, and thanks in advance to all of the participants and conversationalists we have coming up. I'm Kristen Leary. I'm with the Frederick Douglass Family Initiatives and the Frederick Douglass Ireland Project, and most importantly on the on the Douglas Week team. And I just wanted to mention one of the things we've learned through the last 2.5 days of Douglas Week is that this conversation, this celebration is all about connections and different responses to the Douglas story in Ireland. The story of abolitionists traveling to Ireland generally, and really excited about this night as an artistic, musical, creative response to that story. So thanks again to everyone for being here, and really looking forward to the program tonight.
Thank you, Kristen. And it's now my pleasure and great honor to introduce you to Sarah McCready. She will guide us through this wonderful evening. She is a Government of Ireland postgraduate scholar. She's doing her PhD at the School of English in UCC in Cork. Sarah is an amazing singer and songwriter herself. She is a core member of the Douglas Week team. She's been fighting this fight with us for 1.5 years, trying to manage the challenges that came up last year with the pandemic. And most of all, also, Sarah is a fantastic colleague and an outstanding friend. And it's my pleasure to introduce you to her now. And Sarah, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much for the kind introduction, Caroline. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And you're so very welcome to this musical evening. I can't really quite believe that I'm in such a privileged position tonight to talk to such amazing musicians, activists, and primarily human beings. So, as Caroline says, my name is Sarah McCready, and I'm one of the organizers of Douglas Week. And it's been so fantastic to be involved in facilitating these events. But the cherry on top for me, as someone who's also a singer-songwriter, as Caroline says, has been to collaborate with some of the people that I'm chatting to this evening in making music that has been inspired by Frederick Douglass and his journey to Ireland 176 years ago. Not only just making music about Frederick Douglass, but also, I suppose, about everything he stands for and those connections between the past and the present. So, and these musical collaborations, they feel like the start of our own journey. And I think it's a journey that's going to reach well beyond this week. I know that Kristen Leary has been calling Douglas Week Douglas Year, and I would tend to agree. So all the projects and songs and music you're going to hear tonight, I think these are things that have really far-reaching impacts. So without further ado, let's start hearing about some of those Douglas inspired projects and the people behind them. And the way this is going to work is I will introduce people as we go through kind of each section of the evening. And this will consist of a mix of conversation and performances over the next 2 hours or so. So make yourself comfy, light the fire, pour a glass of wine, relax, enjoy the evening with us. So first of all, it's really my honor and pleasure to introduce to you in the first section of our evening. And we're going to hear a very exciting interview just in a minute. But before we do, I just want a few words of introduction. Kenneth B. Morris Jr., president and co-founder of Frederick Douglas Family Initiatives, and the great-great-great-grandson of Frederick Douglas himself, as well as the great-great-grandson of Booker T. Washington, joins us this evening. And Ken has already kindly joined us for many events over the past few days. It's just shown really the breadth of the strings that Ken has to his bow. And what he's had to share so far has been so inspiring and eye-opening, and I'm sure we're in for more of this tonight when Ken's going to share some details with us about American Prophet, the musical. So we're going to hear this conversation tonight, and in this first section, what I'd like to do first of all is hear a conversation between Ken and the director of American Prophet, the musical, Charles Randolph Wright. And unfortunately, Charles couldn't be with us this evening, but the beauty of Zoom is that we're able to get him up on the screen now. So he might not be able to be here in real time, but it'll be great to see him engaging with Ken on our screens. And then after this, I'll invite Ken to reflect on what we see with Marcus Hummon, who's also joining us tonight, a Grammy Award winning songwriter and the co-writer and composer of American Prophet, the musical. So we're going to see this interview now from Ken and Charles, and we're going to just sit back and relax and enjoy that. And following that, we're going to hear a performance of one of the songs from the musical, What Does Freedom Look Like, from Cahill. So I'll ask the team behind me to start queuing that up now. And I'm very grateful to Stevie Granger, one of Cork's foremost DJs, one of the most famous DJs in Ireland, and a real music historian and educator who's joining in tonight and helping out on the tech side of things. Anyone who was here last night for Douglas and Diversity on Screen knows that we had a few little audio issues, so we're trying our best to make sure that that's not going to be a problem, because it's obviously fundamental to a musical evening. So Ken, hello. We'll maybe hear a little few words from you while we're waiting to get queued up.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's an honor to be with you again. And I've just been so inspired by all of the panels that I've sat on and also had an opportunity to watch. You all have done a great job. And thank you very much for putting this evening together. I'm really looking forward to it.
Thank you so much for being here. And Marcus, thank you so much for joining us as well. It's great to have you in real time. Oh, you're on mute, Marcus.
Unmute myself. There we are. You got me?
Got you.
All right. Well, thank you, Sarah. I really appreciate it. I love being here, and I wish I was in Ireland. I wish I was over there with you.
Yeah, I wish you guys were here too. That's kind of the only downside of Douglas Week, I think. I mean, I think it's the one thing that's amazing about the virtual space is to get everyone together in this from all over the world, the different time zones. So that's been fantastic. But yeah, there's something special about being here in Ireland, and that's something I want to talk to Paul about a little bit later on. But I guess if we're waiting kind of to get queued up, then we can jump into some conversation, and hopefully we'll get set up in a minute whenever the video comes on. So while we're waiting for that, I suppose I'll just start asking you guys about American Prophet. Marcus, obviously you've written, correct me if I'm wrong, but 6 musicals and an opera, is that right?
Yeah, my main job is writing country songs, I guess, but I've driven my publishers mad for years by writing musicals and a little bit of opera. So, but this is the one that is the most dear to me, and really has taken my thoughts and my passions the last, Ken, when did we first meet? 6 years ago, was it?
I was trying to remember when I was talking to Charles last night. I think it was 5 or 6 years ago that we were put in touch with each other through a mutual friend. and you said that you were working on this musical about Frederick Douglass, and I definitely heard about feature films and TV shows, but not a musical.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
Marcus, I just wondering what was different for you about American Prophet compared to the other projects that you've done? What was it that really struck you about this project, and how did you get involved?
Well, the genesis of it was I was commissioned by the cathedral here to write about the prophetic, to create a larger, maybe choral work. And I was rereading Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, American Slave, and just told the dean that I wanted to do a piece based on the life of Frederick Douglass. And originally it was more of a concert theatrical, but the more that I worked on it, the deeper I got into the material. And I really wanted to see it a full-fledged American musical. And I wanted a director, and I wanted another writer. I wanted a writer-director to work with. And I kept looking around, and I really just, it really began to happen. The piece really began to blossom once Charles was involved, because he just has a lot of depth to the work that he's done, and he was able to push me, and we've pushed each other in this project. And unfortunately, we've had to wait. We were expecting to open this past summer, but we're still, hopeful. And the language, the words, the vision, it's not going away, and it's never going to lose its power. And God knows our country certainly still needs to hear it. So that's become abundantly apparent. So I'm just excited, and I still work and I still read. I mean, there's a lot to read.
There sure is. Yeah. I think one thing that we've been talking about a little bit with Douglas Week so far is the extent to which Frederick Douglass has become a bit more well known in the past number of years. I think, Professor Cahill even pointed out yesterday how he was referenced in the young poet Amanda Gorman's speech during Biden's inauguration. So what do you think the American Prophet has done for Douglass in terms of raising people's awareness? Obviously, as you say, you're hoping to open last summer, but what is your vision there in seeing what the American Prophet can do for Douglass?
Yeah, I mean, what can it do? I mean, I think of, so many works, David Blight's work, the work Ken was involved in with the photographs. And there's been so much about Douglass. There's a kind of a renaissance, I guess, of thinking about him and his import. And I just like to be part of it. I do think that that there are things that music can do that nothing else can do. And even though you will, I don't know if we'll, make it to Broadway. Arena alone is a great experience. To be in the DC area near where Frederick was born is extraordinarily exciting. And I know that we'll touch a lot of people. I hope that it'll go on and light a fire for young people too, and their imagination about really looking at who this man was, his real import in the 19th century and beyond. And for me as a composer, the composer side to me is I just love working in this language, because it's some of the greatest language in American history, and maybe world history, in terms of really trying to look at what does freedom in fact mean? What does it look like Mom says.
Yeah, that's something I know that some of the kids in the Cork Migrant Centre have been looking at. They have this song Freedom that we're going to play a bit later on. So I'd be interested to hear you respond to that, Marcus. And without further ado, I think we're ready now to hear from Ken and Charles Randolph Wright. And I think this gives some really good context to American Prophet the musical for maybe people who are just coming to this and just learning about Frederick Douglass. So thank you, Ken, for sitting down with Charles. It's really great to have him in the virtual room today. So here's an interview between Ken and Charles. I think we're still struggling. Sorry, guys. Yeah, I mean, Marcus.
Yes.
Okay, we'll see if this works. Sorry for cutting in and out. I just want to make sure this works. Still no sound, I don't think.
At least they both look good.
They do, yeah.
Thanks for that. It was late last night.
You've been very busy, Ken.
Good evening. My name is
Almost there.
Almost.
both look good.
They do, yeah.
Thanks for that.
Uh-oh.
And I'm
You've been
good evening. My name is Kenneth B. Morris. Good evening. And I am great-great-great-grandson of Frederick Douglas. And I'm also the great-great-grandson of Lesley Roy. And co-founder and president of the Frederick Douglas Foundation.
I think if everybody can mute their mics.
Yeah.
Charles is an American film, television, and theater director, television producer, playwright, and most recently,
Can people hear? No. Yeah, no, I can't hear either. Right, we'll keep firing ahead. Marcus.
Are you sharing from system?
What's that, Griff?
Are you sharing from system? When you do the share, make sure that it's clicked share from system audio.
Yeah. Okay. Well, our team are working away on that. So in the meantime, Marcus, this language that you were talking about working with, you know, because I was kind of thinking about this American Prophet the musical and Frederick Douglass in his own words. I mean, that's a big ask, you know, like how do you condense this epic journey? I mean, Frederick Douglass he's so inspiring to so many people. And when we were in some of the workshops earlier, a lot of the kids who've been learning about Frederick Douglass for the first time from the Cork Migrant Center, they were talking about how, well, what does Frederick Douglass mean to you now? And people, they've been using the word resilience a lot, you know, and talking about kind of how Frederick Douglass inspires them in that way. So this figure that people look up to, I mean, how do you condense an epic journey like Frederick Douglass's into a show?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, you do it with some humility. You know, I'm really fortunate that that I did get to meet, for example, Kenneth, you know, and there's something really obviously very special about his breadth of knowledge. And I've just periodically kind of tapped into that. And then there are some great scholars right now, you know, who have published, and there are things to look at. We decided to look at it in terms of up to 1865, up to the death of Lincoln. We wanted to look at a kind of a volatile, formative period. We do tell some of the stories, the famous stories of his upbringing that have become, you know, part of kind of American literature, iconic characters now that he gave us about his own life. But in some ways, we focused the show on three other prophetic characters, each of whom he took something from and then rejected: William Lloyd Garrison, John Brown, and Abraham Lincoln. And we also wanted to do something that was a little bit different, which is to focus to some extent on what his life, his relationship with Anna Marie would have been like. So of course, there's not a lot of information from Douglas on that. We have Rosetta's book, we have things that we can infer, but that has been one of the most exciting aspects of it, to just meditate upon her life and what her impact on his work. And then with regards to what Charles, I'm sure, will talk about in terms of writing a piece about Douglas in his own words, as it is, as we say, what we've really done is just done our best to use Douglas language wherever we can. We're fortunate in his third autobiography, Life and Times, that he did talk about John Brown and his time with Abraham Lincoln. And he actually did use, he didn't write a script for us, but there are quotes. And where possible, we've tried to use those quotes as we have created scenes and songs around those relationships. So fortunately, between his 3 autobiographies and his many speeches and his writing, we at least have a lot of information, to work from. So whether or not how well we carry it off, we'll see. You'll be the judge. You'll have to see the show and tell me if you thought it was any good.
I know that it will be. I just know.
Well, I can jump in here because I certainly
Yeah.
have seen. I had an opportunity to go to New York City. Marcus and Charles flew me out so I could see a rehearsal in November of 2019, and it was just a wonderful time and experience. And they were preparing to do a series of readings at the Apollo Theater in New York City. So I was able to hear this incredible, beautiful, powerful music that Marcus has composed, and just the acting and the singing, the choral arrangements. It's just really going to be a remarkable show. I have no doubt. It's going to be something that people will really be moved by. They'll walk away from the performance really understanding who Frederick Douglass was as a freedom fighter. And of course, Marcus talked about all the way up until 1865, this is set in, but the various characters that come throughout the musical, John Brown and Abraham Lincoln and Mary Todd Lincoln, and a number of other characters. It's just such a powerful piece of work. And I know it's only going to get better. It was supposed to premiere at the Arena Stage in Washington, D.C. this past summer, and the Arena Stage, for anybody that's familiar with what they've put up, their productions are very good. So I'm looking forward to seeing it with costumes and with whatever setting and sets and lighting they decide to use.
Yeah, no, that's amazing, Ken. And yeah, I mean, obviously with the pandemic, it's a shame not to be going into it now, but we'll get there, and it will come back, and it'll be bigger and better than ever. So that's fantastic. I was kind of wondering about, in terms of, it was one thing we talked about last night a bit, Ken, in the Douglas and Diversity on Screen panel, when we talked about kind of cinematic slave narratives and getting away from some of the stereotypes on screen. I was thinking about how this kind of thing might apply to music this evening, because, you know, I did have the privilege of watching the video between you and Charles, which, you know, if we can't play it for some reason, we'll make sure that we can get it on our website. But I did have a chance to watch this before this evening, and one thing that Charles talked about was this idea of boundary crossing, of how, you know, everything needs to go in a box, and this is a way to facilitate ignorance. If you put something in a box, then you put that away. And so I wondered, I guess, how this might apply to music, in the sense of, when we think about music, we think about genres, we think about pop and hip hop and rock. And there's a very easy dismissal there to say that a song is a specific genre or a specific style. So Marcus, maybe you can talk a little bit about how you went about transgression in the music, and was that something that you saw, Ken, or something that spoke to you?
Yeah, well, Marcus can, of course, speak to the musical styles and what he's doing with it. But, you know, as far as putting Frederick Douglass in a box, that's very difficult to do, because he had a 50-plus year public career. We know his story, that he was born into slavery and then he escaped at the age of 20. But he was such a Renaissance man. He was himself a lover of music. He learned to play the fiddle because of his time in Ireland, and he was inspired by Irish music. And he would go on to teach my great-grandfather Joseph and his grandson Joseph how to play the violin. And Joseph would continue his study at the Boston Conservatory of Music. He would become a concert violinist and play concerts all over the world, including playing several times in the White House. And he was the first Black classical recording artist for the Victor Talking Machine Company. And so I know that if Frederick Douglass were here today, he would love this musical and he would love the music. And so, you know, putting him in a box or any of the other slave narratives, if we were to look at television or to look at feature films, you know, Frederick Douglas' story is not a slave story. This is not a music about slavery. It's a musical about a freedom fighter who happened to have been born into slavery and who went on to affect change in the world around him and affect change for all of us. And so, Marcus, if you want to just speak to, you know, what you've done with the musical styles and.
Well, it's some really those are some really interesting points too, Ken and Sarah, because there is, you know, when you're writing music and you have a powerful African-American character, you know, one of the most powerful characters in our history. And there is I think sometimes there's the tendency to think that, well, the music is going to sound like this. It's going to be cliched. It's going to have this sort of theatrical version of R&B / black gospel, maybe, kind of. And I work a lot farther kind of in my own world and in my own imagination. And my own background is in roots, everything from guitar to piano to banjo. And I really kept thinking about a palette that included sort of American hymnic kind of writing in terms of harmonic progressions and then rhythms. Just because my own music has always been hybrid, even in country music, first hit I ever had was basically a groove that was later cut by an R&B group. And I sort of defy characterization. I've never been crazy about people putting things in too many boxes anyway. It's one of the reasons I work well with Charles. It was kind of funny. I'll tell you a funny Charlesism, because Charles is really a powerful guy to work with. He's very intense. And a lot of the songs I've written will be because, you know, we'll be looking at a scene, you know, between John Brown and Frederick, and we're writing it together. We're writing the scene and we're pulling things, and he goes, this has to be a song, you know, this moment. And then I go back and I write something. We've kind of had this. There's only one song from the original piece, the first piece I worked on, and it's What Does Freedom Look Like? Everything else is different, 23 more songs, right? But there was one time I thought this moment, you know, we were talking about being in a church. We were talking about evangelical, how his language changed, how Douglas could shift gears. And we know this from people's commentary about him. He could be funny, and then he could be cutting, and then he would rage. You know, it's hard to imagine how great a speaker he probably was, and people said he was. I think he was just a rock star of a speaker. But I thought, well, I love, you know, one of my gears is I do like writing kind of groove-based gospel music. And I laid into a song and I cut it and I put my harmonies and I did my whole thing. And Charles is like, he's like, no way. Because he said, no, it sounds like you're kind of trying to write black gospel. And I'm like, I mean, you know, and he goes, yeah, but everything else has this kind of hybrid quality and it all sounds like you. He goes, that one right there, I don't know. He says, that doesn't exactly, it sounds like some other composers could have written it. And I was like, well, all right, you know, because I figure he knows what he's talking about.
And that's kind of nice to hear, though. And I think it's something that it comes out of collaboration as well. Whenever, you know, I find myself collaborating with some of the amazing artists here, like whenever you dip into someone else's work, you get this chance to sort of branch out and open up your own expression in terms of writing. So I'm really apologize, guys, that we can't get the interview going because it was honestly so inspiring. And thank you, Ken, for sharing that. We'll make everything available on the website and on YouTube. So please tune in for Ken and Charles's interview. We are going to try, fingers crossed, to play What Does Freedom Look Like Now? And this is another connection between Ireland and America, because this is Emmett Cahill from Celtic Thunder doing a rendition of What Does Freedom Look Like from American Prophet the Musical. So fingers crossed, everyone, this works. I think Stevie is going to share a screen whenever he's ready. Oh, I still don't think there's any sound. Sorry, guys. That is a real shame. Well, there we go.
Does freedom look like? A spray flying high, careless as the topsail, waving in a fearless sky, a fearless sky, a fearless sky. What does freedom taste like? Salt from the briny sea. Waves leap for their starboard bow, as if to welcome me, to welcome me, to welcome me. Never leave someone behind. Oh, freedom, talking about freedom. Never leave someone behind. What does freedom look like? Once it runs, it dreams. It knows just where it's going and goes just where it pleases, where it pleases, where it pleases. What does freedom look like?
What a great singer. Good Lord.
Emma Cahill, everyone. That's amazing. Can I just get a reaction, Ken?
Yeah, for some reason I'm not able to start my video here, but I think that's just beautiful. And Marcus is such a talented and gifted songwriter. You know, one of the things that he didn't say is that when he and Charles talk about a scene, and then Marcus will go home and write a song, he usually does that overnight, and he comes back the next day with a really beautiful song. That singer just performed it really well, and that was a shortened version of that song, so it makes me want to hear the rest, the other, I think two or three verses that are missing and a couple of choruses, but I just think it's just beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. Marcus?
I just think his voice is just so extraordinarily beautiful. I would love to, you know, just perform, you know, have some other songs with him, because I mean, the writer in me is like, I'm fascinated by some of that voice. Yeah, no, you know, there's another player in the American prophet world, and that is, I mean, I do some choral arranging and ensemble arranging, but our music director is Joseph Joubert, and he is, you know, he just takes things to a completely different level. And I've learned a lot in the couple of years I've gotten to work with him, and he's just a brilliant guy. He worked on Motown with Charles, and also Color Purple and Billy Elliot, and a variety of his arranging, you know, chops. And then he's, you know, one of the great piano players. He's a touring, you know, pianist. So that's another thing, because in that song, you know, there's also a choir, but I just thought that was a beautiful rendition. I hope folks were able to hear that.
Yeah, and it's unbelievable how much emotion he got into that just sitting in a room in front of a screen. So I can only imagine whenever, things get a little bit better with COVID and everything, to be able to see something like that in a physical space. I mean, I think we were all crying on Zoom last night seeing Roger Grimber Smith speak. So if we can cry on Zoom, then who knows what it'll be like in the physical space. But thank you so much, Marcus and Ken, for sharing these conversations about American Prophet the musical. It's so inspiring to hear about. This whole week we're talking about Frederick Douglass across history, across education, across literature, across music, across sport. So it's amazing to hear about this, and please stick around, guys, because we're going to come back to you a little bit later on whenever we kind of all come together in the gallery view at the end. So thank you so much for sharing, and apologies for the technical issues, and thanks for being so patient. So
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. So for the second portion of our musical evening, I'm delighted to ask Paul Oakley Stovall, Nikhil Saboo, and Nicole Morris to draw up a virtual chair. And Nicole is a recent graduate from Africa College for Musical Theatre, and it's a family affair tonight. Obviously, as we said, Nicole is Ken's daughter, and so the great-great-great-great-granddaughter of Frederick Douglass. And Nicole is joined by two of the stars from Hamilton, the musical, Paul Oakley Stovall and Nikhil Saboo, who are currently in Ireland researching for their next TV project, an 8-part limited series on Frederick Douglass in Ireland. So Paul, Nikhil, I will start with you guys. First of all, it's crazy to think that we're on Zoom and you guys are about 10 minutes away from where I live right now. But you guys have been almost as busy as Frederick was whenever he was here 176 years ago. You've had a busy week. So can you tell us a little bit about how you ended up in Ireland and how has being in Ireland influenced the music that you're writing and the kind of sound that you're putting out?
Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah. I would never say that we've been as busy as Frederick was, but we've been hanging in there, doing our best, and not complaining about having lots to do. I ended up hearing about this slice of Frederick's life in Ireland and Scotland and England, but mainly in Ireland, when I was doing a writer's workshop, and one of the other writers told me about it. Being a college educated Black man, I thought I knew everything there was to know because I had read the autobiography. So that was it, right? So I found out about this, and since I began writing from an actor's point of view, my instinct was always, you could read a lot about it, but you need to go and experience it. So I called up Nikhil and I said, guess what I'm about to do? And he said, well, I'm coming too. So we came out here and we spent the first 6 weeks, I think, in Dublin. Mm-hmm. And we were just coming to work on the series. I had been made aware of Douglas Week by Caroline, and it was sort of off in the distance that maybe I would read some of Frederick's speeches and participate in some way. And she had let me know there was a musical strand component to it. So our focus was on the series, but Nikhil had brought his guitar and he would be noodling around and I'd stumble into the room where he was playing, and we were more writing songs that were just inspired by the journey of Frederick, with no intent that this would be used in a musical or used in any way other than for Douglas Week. We didn't even know what it would be used for, but knowing that he was a lover of music and he played the violin, we just felt it was appropriate. And I think it helped that we had the characters that we were writing about posted on the wall. So these imagined scenarios came about. And so that's how some of the music was coming about.
Okay, well, we're gonna, fingers crossed, hear some of the music now. We're gonna play Traveling, which is one of the new songs that you guys just sent to me today. And I have to say, this is one of my favorites that you guys have been working on. How many songs have you guys written since you came to Ireland? I don't know.
For this, we wrote 4 or 5, and then we've been jumping in with the lads at the Irish Institute of Music and Song on a couple more. So we've almost got an album.
Yeah, I know you're getting there, and it's just great to see everything grow and to get everyone together and see the influence that Ireland is having on your music. And
if I can set this up quickly, Traveling is it's an imagined scenario where a character that I've created that is not found in any history books, named Govind, a South Asian Indian man, you'll see Nikhil in the video, is taking Frederick out into the countryside to look at some of the impoverished communities. And Govind doesn't have an understanding of how Frederick, being a former slave, technically still a slave, feels about being in the countryside. And Frederick gives him some knowledge.
Thank you, Paul. So this is Traveling, Paul Oakley, Stovall, and Nikhil Saboo.
What was your life like before this?
Read my book.
Reading is not my thing.
Well, we'll have to work on that.
You all right there, Mr. Douglas?
Sure am. Just getting used to feeling my lungs full. How about you? You all right?
Yeah. Happy to be with someone who looks like me.
You think I look like you?
Close enough.
Close enough.
I hate the city. I feel so free in the countryside.
We do not have that in common, my brother. In my life before this, if you found yourself out in the countryside, you were being hunted, and you were looking for a river to hide your scent.
Oh. I'm sorry, brother.
My grandmother promised me that one day I'd walk freely on this earth. Not running, but just traveling. Maybe with a friend. Traveling. No beginning, no end. Traveling. Down some random road. Traveling. No fear, no care, no. In the place where I come from. Being out here like this, it would mean we're on the run. The river, hills, the trees were meant for me. And I'm just traveling, looking straight ahead. Traveling, not leading to being led. Traveling, nothing on our minds. Traveling, taking our sweet time to be able to dream about what we want in life. Breaking the chains of the body and the mind, like choosing your own name. Traveling, all this feels good. Traveling, and doesn't like it should. I'm traveling, what a beautiful day. Hey, traveling, don't have to know the way. Nothing can stop us. Nothing can hold us back. Church is our brown skin. The sun is our friend. Traveling. Did you just smile? Traveling. Yeah, I know. It's been a while. Since I felt so free. Feeling the sun shine down on me. Living sweat on my skin. Loving my skin. Loving the skin that we're in. Feeling what this is. Feeling what this is. Traveling, glad to be with you. Traveling,
Yeah, me too.
Traveling, Listen, about that sound, traveling. I won't tell nobody. Seriously, don't tell nobody.
Woo! Okay, everyone. Paul and Nikhil traveling. How about it? Anyone want to respond to that? Anyone want to quick react?
Great. This is very groovy.
Yeah, very groovy.
Marcus, I was most nervous about you hearing it, but I feel like it's in the genre of some things I learned from you when I did American Duet for you. And so I was most concerned that Marcus would be
I was just thinking whether I was going to play along.
I know Marcus has the piano right there. So thank you so much for sharing that with us, guys. I think that the music that you've been creating is just absolutely incredible. And I know, obviously, you've come to Ireland and this has given you a space to sort of think about Frederick Douglas being here and think about yourselves being here and sort of the synergy of that experience. But on the other side of the coin, we have Nikhil, who is in the US and is still able to be a part of this journey. And Nikhil, I just want to bring you into this conversation now, because you've obviously recently graduated and now should be the time that you're out there and finding new projects, meeting new people, forging new paths for the future. And obviously things like that have been difficult. It's been difficult to make those connections with the pandemic. So, and as I say, the other side of that is that we're having this conversation right now and we're all in different time zones across the world. So I kind of want to talk a little bit about the virtual collaboration process, because I know in a few minutes we're going to play another song with Paul and Nikhil and Nikhil, which has been written, sending files back and forth. So Nikhil, how do you stay inspired whenever you can't perform and you can't be in a studio space together?
I mean, I already feel inspired doing it just anyway. And I don't know. Yeah, like you said, it's kind of hard being a recent graduate of school, and this should be the time that I go out and find work. But I've discovered that the work that I'm trying to find is this, and recording these songs and stuff. And it's fun. It's such a joy to do. And I just feel so lucky that I got this opportunity to play around. I don't even want to say work with, just like play around with Paul and Nikhil. And it's just been such a great experience. And I think I feel so inspired, not only from my musical gene, but also just being a descendant of Frederick Douglass as well. And it's been really awesome.
I think we're just so delighted to have you on board, Nikhil. What is that collaborative process like for you guys? I mean, do you think there's what are the pros and cons for you? Like, Nikhil, if I can maybe ask you to come in here, of kind of sending files back and forth and just kind of, I mean, the one thing about it is that all these things that we try and schedule that you don't have time for, all of a sudden you just do in your own space. So can you maybe talk about that a little bit?
Of course. I think that, having to sort of send files, and we'll just talk about Nikhil, is that like you give over this beautiful trust, it's just like you share a piece of you give it to someone else, and it's like adding layers to a cake. And I think within that, you get to, as an artist, since we are in our own spaces, you get to go to your quiet place to create, and even though there's a whole side of the coin where I love to be with 4 or 5 other people, we're all jamming out. Oh, you take this part, that part. What about, there's that, but there's something special about this too. And I want to always see the positive side in it. Mm-hmm. So I love how, Paul and I did our work. We have Hugh at the Irish Institute of Music who helped mix it all. And, there was just a part where like, all right, we just couldn't wait to hear what Nikhil would add, because, Yeah, so that's
Oh, because I sounded terrible singing the female part on the song too.
well, yes.
You actually sounded absolutely amazing. And I was so inspired by your version.
You're a good liar. You're a good liar.
No.
I appreciate you. I appreciate you.
All singing that. We had that like song for about a month in our little capsule, and it would just, whenever I listened to it, because we would like play it out in our apartment room, it would be Paul singing both parts, and we were pitching for finally.
Paul, can you kind of set the scene for us with Fire in My Eyes? Because I think that would help us understand how you talk about this beautiful trust, like Nikhil, you getting that and trying to connect with the intimacy in the song from such a distance. So Paul, can you jump in there?
Yes, absolutely. First of all, really quickly, in traveling, 2 of the locations you saw were we were in front of what is left of the Jennings factory, and the house was right next door. So the sort of brick home that we were in front of a couple of times was right in front of the Jennings home and factory. And when we were walking out in slow motion, we were leaving the Imperial Hotel where Frederick stayed here in Cork. So we tried to incorporate some of that magic as well. So this song is an imagined duet between Frederick and Isabel Jennings from here in Cork. When he was here. And the setup is, it's his last night in Cork. The famine is taking a real hold on the country, and he's been tasked to go to Limerick, where it's hitting pretty hard. Now, his 4 to 5 weeks in Cork have been very fruitful, and Isabel Jennings, from this powerful family, she's 5 years older than him, and she's unmarried and has decided to live that life, to be an individual. She's felt so useful in these past 4.5 weeks, kind of managing his speeches and selling the books. And now he's about to leave, and she's, she's not sure what's next for her as a woman in a patriarchal world. So she has something. The setup is Frederick is in the Jennings family library. He's leaving the next morning, and Isabel wants to speak with him. And before you play it, I just want to say I was really inspired by Roger Genvere-Smith last night when he said that he did a show where an Irishman played Frederick. And when we talked to Ken about, and he said, Nikhil could do it, I had about 0.3 seconds where I said, oh, but Nicole's Black, so how could she play a white woman? And I remembered what show I'm in and said, what are you talking about? Of course, let's have her do it. So
yeah, Hamilton, right?
Yeah, I mean, come on, wake up, Paul. So this is Nikhil Morris as Isabel Jennings. I'm trying my best to sing Frederick, and the music is by Nikhil Saboo.
Oh, Frederick, you're still.
Up. It's late. Time to
wait. I just need to say one thing.
I leave tomorrow, Isabel. I gotta get my sleep.
These past weeks have been great.
Yes, they have.
And I just want to say, Frederick, there's fire in your eyes.
So I've been told. Thank you.
It's always there, that fire.
Well, I use it in the daytime, and I need it to see at night.
Look at me.
Isabel, you have it too. That fire.
Tell me about the fire.
That fire in my eyes is love. That fire in my eyes is enough. Enough to carry me across oceans and lead me back home. That fire in my eyes is tough. That fire in my eyes costs so much. Enough to carry me across oceans and take me back home. When the least of us is lifted up, the journey feels a little less impossible. Isabel, and it's worth the wait. I carry every day in every way and every part of me. When the least of us struggles, we all feel that pain. And if I don't keep moving forward, the struggle gets born again and again and again.
I know I've seen every picture you take. Every word that you say has that fire. And I would never betray myself for someone you choose over the things you must do, Frederick. Everyone fawns over the man they think you are, the star whose light shines so bright over Ireland. And what can I say? I feel the same way. My life has changed because of your fire. That fire in your eyes is love. That fire in your eyes is enough. Enough to carry across oceans and lead you back home. That fire in my eyes brings hope. That fire in my eyes will grow to the end of forever. Even when I am gone. I wonder who, I wonder why sometimes I do the work I do.
You may not live to see the change, and that's okay. You can feel it in your bones. And now it's time to say goodbye.
You know, alright.
You better write to me. And if we don't meet again in this life,
I'm so thankful for that fire.
That fire in my eyes is love. That fire in my eyes is enough. Enough to carry me across oceans. And lead me back home.
I don't know what to think, what to feel, what to do. Maybe I've said too much. I'm such a fool.
No, not a fool. But there's hunger in every wreck, and my work is not through.
I think I might love you.
Baby, please, don't make this too hard, Isabel. I'm down on my knees, and I need to stand up, stand strong. What we're feeling isn't wrong, but it's all in my way, and I've got to go.
Don't go. Let me go.
This book, Lady of the Lake.
Take it. It's yours. Take it. I've seen you staring it down and lighting it up with that fire in your eyes.
I haven't seen this many books in a while.
What is it? What is it about that one that catches your eye?
It's where I got my name.
Woo! Okay, everyone. Thank you, Paul, Nikhil, and of course, Nicole Morris, the great. And I want to add another great in there, even though I know it's not factually accurate, because that was amazing, Nicole. Oh my word, you absolutely killed that bridge. That was incredible. Can you just tell us about getting into Isabel's shoes? I mean, you're singing here with your direct descendant, like in this voice, in this perspective. What was that like?
It was very strange, but in a good way, because I've grown up my whole life just only really knowing about Frederick Douglass's story and, you know, his perspective of everything that occurred with him. And I didn't know who Isabel Jennings was until we started this project. And there's really not much about her if you kind of search online and everything. So you kind of have to go deep, but just learning about her story and also just being a woman in this time, and that I am a woman in this time, that I have a much different perspective of his story now through Isabel. And so I think, yeah, it was just a wonderful thing to kind of research into her life and sing with my my grandpa, I guess I should say.
Yeah, no, it's crazy when you think about it, isn't it? But it's so powerful. So thank you guys so much for sharing. I want to thank Paul, Nikhil, and Nicole for this section of conversation and for sharing your beautiful music. And guys, please stick around, because as I say, I'll get you all back in the gallery view at the end of our musical extravaganza. But for now, I'm going to kind of pass the baton over to Donal Kearney from the Irish Institute of Music and Song, who will introduce and guide along our next speakers, Griff, Brandon, and Eimear. Donal is also a musician, a songwriter, a music educator, and we'll be hearing more from him and his band True later. And Donal has been a great supporter and advocate of Douglas Week. He even did a very last minute interview in Irish to promote the events. At the moment, he's doing an Irish course. So thanks for that, Donal. The team thanks you for all your support. And we look forward to now hearing you chat with Griff and Brendan and Eimear.
Great, thank you so much, Sarah. And it's a real privilege and so excited to be part of Douglas Week. And yeah, I exposed my Irish skills and my rusty Irish as I went on radio last night. But it's brilliant that we're able to reignite together as a community the values that Douglas espoused during his lifetime, as we've been hearing all this week, and as it's coming through in these songs as well. So thank you to Sarah, and thank you to the Douglas Week team for all their amazing work so far. So we're going to have a little bit of a section of conversation. We'll rattle through it, and there's so much to talk about. We're going to have Brendan Breslin. He's the head of the Royal Irish Academy of Music Connect, a course supervisor in music ensemble, and project manager of the Royal Irish Academy Music Ensemble Fest. We're going to speak to Eimear Noone. She's an Irish conductor and composer, best known for her award-winning work on video game music. She's conducted so many orchestras, there's probably too long a list here, but she also conducted at last year's Oscars. And then we're going to speak to Griff Olfson, who's a professor of music at University College Cork, National University of Ireland, and the author of Flip the Script about European hip-hop and the politics of post-coloniality. So I'd like to go to Griff first. We're going to hear a song from you later, or a song that you're going to talk us through, but you can tell us about it. So can you tell us what ways can we see problems of representation? We're going to speak about ensemble and representation in this little section here. So Griff, we'll start with you. What issues with representation do you see in the world of popular music?
Yeah, so thank you so much, everyone. That was beautiful. It's tough. I'm still reeling from that amazing duet. So I guess just to say a little bit about what we were up to. I teach a course called Music and Race. I'm a jazz bassist and hip hop scholar. And so my background is in African American music, and I'm constantly, trying to get students to think about issues of representation, and especially, appropriation and misappropriation. And so I suppose the track what we're going to listen to later is an African American spiritual, one of the sorrow songs. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. And pretty much every course I teach, whether it's the music and race course or the hip hop courses or jazz history courses, we talk about representation in terms of appropriation, solidarity versus misappropriation, and the fine lines that emerge. And I've been inspired with the conversations the past few days between Paul and Nikhil and Roger and Ken about the need for artists to just move ahead. Artists need to till the ground to create conversations. And what I always tell my students is, students who want to be on the right side of, not misappropriating, doing the work, stepping back when it's necessary. But I tell them it's not about, there are no rules about appropriation, about representation. It's, if you're ever accused, or if someone has a question about what you're representing or what you're doing, how do you respond? Do you respond openly and ask for guidance and help, or do you do this sort of knee-jerk thing and I'm not a racist? And that's something that it's this whole project, I think it was Nikhil was just talking about, the sort of trust that really needs to happen, and that trust, of course, is earned. And so I suppose that's the point. My take as a musicologist and a critical race theorist is there needs to be dialogue. If there's no dialogue, then you can pretty much count on misrepresentation, misappropriation. If there is dialogue, there can be trust and there can be a way forward. I guess that's my 2 cents.
Absolutely. And I suppose the idea of trust and dialogue, it all relies on leadership. And maybe I could bring you in here, Eimear, just to speak about, as a musical leader, as a director of music, and if you want to just unmute there, I know that you've conducted orchestras from all over the world. So, as a leader in that scenario where there's an ensemble of people from usually across the globe, what type of things have you witnessed as sort of issues when it comes to representation, and maybe what ways have you seen it in terms of positive leadership?
Well, I have seen a lot, as you can imagine, from Asia through Europe, the United States, the Middle East, all over the place. And I would say, it gives me a great kick when I'm in with the Qatar Philharmonic to say to the oboist, Mohammed, will you give us an A, please? That's an orchestra with 28 nationalities when I'm there as the paddy. The one thing about music I love is that it's very much about what you can do and what you can bring to the situation. One of the things with orchestras, and this is I think it might be the 80s or the 90s, there was a massive lawsuit. An American French horn player sued the orchestra she'd worked for because she was sort of hired as a principal player and then sidelined in terms of what parts she was given and so on. And she won the lawsuit. And ever since then, we've had blind auditions for the orchestra. Even so much so that they will lay down carpet for the musician to walk to their chair and sit down, so that you can't hear heels or anything. Not that, I know plenty of dudes that wear heels, but they've tried to do that. Of course, in my role, it's the one area where they have to see you, So that's been quite interesting. And I'm always surprised. I'm still surprised. I'll be in a place where I assume I won't meet any sort of misogyny or weirdness, and that'll be the place where I get it. And then I'll be somewhere else, like in the Middle East, where I'm assuming there's going to be in mind that it's what you bring to the situation, bring to the table. If you go with a pure heart, if you go in with, for me, there's so much materialism and weirdness in the world today, but musicians, especially in I suppose the orchestral and the classical world and Broadway, there's very few people that ever said, I want to have an enormous house and a flashy car, so I'm going to learn to play the clarinet. Said nobody ever. So I'm always aware that I'm in front of a group of people who were as mad about music as a teenager as I was. We couldn't care less what you get paid to be a musician. All we wanted to do was be a part of it, be part of the ensemble, be part of this magical, visceral experience, the goosebumps that we don't even know why we get them, you know. And I often feel like my job is to remind the ensemble, and wherever I am, because I see the same faces. I mean, the outward look may be different, but the same expression, the same eyes, the same faces everywhere I go. And I feel like if I can just remind them of how passionate they were as a kid for just a moment back there, because, you know, as a professional, things can, you know, be stressful. They can get old sometimes. You can get a little burnt out or whatever. But going back to why we're there to begin with, that's I always go in with that in my heart. And also, these people feed their children off of music. You know, that's how they buy food. That's how they, you know, that's a noble thing in my mind. So, but in terms of representation, I've you know, different places, you notice different things, both culturally, both in terms of culturally and in terms of race, but also gender balance. Always there'll be certain sections of the orchestra that are predominantly male. And I've noticed of the last 10 years, say, many more Asian musicians in the orchestra, which is wonderful. You know, to me, it's all moot. I don't, of course, like every musician I know, all I care about is flavor and what you have to bring to a creative process. And if we're writing music or we're arranging or creating something new, the more different you are from me, the better. The more a different perspective brings a different flavor to things, rather than having, you know, that's something I often talk to like corporate entities about, is problem solving with a whole bunch of people who are looking at something from through the same glasses, the same perspective, rather than having this group of people who are focused on a similar result, but are coming at it from all these different areas and these different flavors. And I've noticed more diversity. I suppose I've been conducting since I was a teenager, actually. But I hope I'm answering your question. I'm not quite sure. But
yeah, no, I mean, it's such a profound point you make there about, for instance, arts education. Arts education is where students gain perspective and they understand the world from different viewpoints. And I'd like to bring Brendan in here, because at the Royal Irish Academy of Music, you know, that's that experience of children becoming teenagers, becoming adults, who are the people of the future. So, I mean, what type of things have you seen in terms of ensemble, or even that experience of perspective and learning from the group? Do you have any examples of that, Brendan?
I do, yeah. And just following on from what Eimear said, you know, we have to bear in mind that even to take Western art music, and if you were to ask, if you Googled it now and you looked for composers down through the years, you're going to find white male perspective. And it's right across the board. It's a reality. And going back to what Griff said, the point that we have, and it's a really interesting time that we have now, that the dialogue has opened, I would hope, properly, and needs to be opened more constructively. From a perspective of education, I mean, you've hit the nail on the head. This is where, and it's lovely to have Eimear here, because I know she comes from a community background, as I do, from the kind of the banding world. This to me is where at the minute these conversations are not happening, and can do. I mean, to give you a specific example, where music is the vehicle, the repertoire is the vehicle, the musicians and the facilitators are the people helping move that vehicle forward. Of recent times, and Eimear would know this well, I think she's an ex-Ballinasloe town band member herself, and I grew up in a brass band in the north. Very recently, the National Band Championships played a piece of music called A Movement for Rosa by Mark Camphouse. And it's the first time that I've seen a piece of repertoire that is challenging a conversation, apart from the fact that it's asking people to play music at a very high level and compete. It started to open up conversations within band rooms about, well, for some, you know, who's Rosa? What is this about? That in itself asks a lot about culture, that the fact that, you know, people are asking that. But we have to look at the positive aspect of that it has opened up the conversation, and how do we follow that on? How do we then start to support that through creative modes and models to say, well, actually, here's how we do create conversation through music as a facilitator and start to open up those conversations. I think we're at a very interesting time from music education perspective, that the bards and the people that are the journalists of their time of yesteryear, as in artists and musicians, now have the ability to not only talk about the current conversation but look to the future and start to change perspective. And again, that's something that's really core to the likes of the academy and other institutions. But from the likes of the holistic programs that we have, we're now opening up the conversation but putting it in context, which why it's been brilliant to be a part of the Douglas Week and do other elements as a party to that, because we're now using that again as the vehicle to say, as part of our outreach, we're now taking 8 schools right across Ireland and saying, well, here's the conversation piece. Here's what we want to do. We want to explore creativity. What does this mean to you? How can you reflect upon that in accessible language terms? So creating soundscapes, because that in itself is a very exploratory process that will define both music and creativity, but harnessed by this conversation. And I think at that level, for me, and maybe it's primarily because of my love of community, that's where we can see the impact. So then through the lifelong learning cycle, we see that young musicians aspire to be older musicians going into professional practice, musician practice or not, but they're bringing that into their lives and then being the advocates on our behalf as well.
Brilliant. And Griff, speaking about sort of the power of music to show perspective and to open up different perspectives to other people, I know that you've done a lot of that in your writing, and speaking about, you know, the power of certain genres or one song or one video to open up a whole culture to another audience. But maybe you could tell us a little bit about that and introduce the song that we're going to hear.
Yeah, thank you, Donal. So we have a lot of, platitudes about the universal language of music. Music can divide, like music can create national divisions, and our music industries are very constantly interested in dividing. But when we understand what's happening with music, I think this is the value of, an arts education and studying music and living with music and talking about music in our communities is music can do some amazing connective work. It can till the ground. It can bring together as much as it can divide. So I think we want to always be aware of that to not go for the platitudes, but to sort of do the hard work, some of that trust building work. So this course, I don't have a lot of students of color in my class. It's Ireland is a still largely sort of mono-ethnic culture country, but I got here in 2014 and got right to work learning about the hip hop scene, learning about the different spaces, meeting Stevie, meeting the hip hop crew here, meeting African and East Asian and Middle Eastern immigrants, migrants to this country who've made their homes here. And it's become an amazing thing to see this country change I just took it for granted, but the more I talk to people say, yeah, no, Ireland has come a long way in the past, 10 years in terms of embracing difference, embracing cultural plurality and pluralism. And I'm going to keep taking that for granted and keep working towards that. So this piece is, I was inspired by a Rusangano family, my friends, God knows, Denise Chila Murley, out in Limerick. And they did a track called We Move the Needle. And it was in front of the Black Lives Matter giant, 5-foot-high letters in the city center. And it was about Black Lives Matter, but it was about the lyrics talk about end direct provision, and we need to be able to connect the legacy of Frederick with issues that are still pressing in Ireland today. Ireland's nowhere near perfect. I've been impressed but it's nowhere near perfect. So this track we take from my class. We read Frederick Douglass, we read W.B. Du Bois, and we read about the sorrow songs, and we picked this one, Sometimes I Feel Like a Motherless Child, to capture some of the essence of chattel slavery, of the Middle Passage, but also of the Irish migrant experience, the famine, a genocide perhaps. We talked about forced dispersion, diaspora, and as I said, appropriation. So how do you make? I teach them about Muhammad Ali visiting Ireland and his forefathers in Ireland. And so how do we take those and create solidarities instead of misappropriations? And we thought, let's translate this African-American spiritual into Irish. We got our former head of department, Triona Nishiohan, to check out our translation. We did a lot of transcription. And then Paul, Oakley Stovall, jumped on the track. And we've got some great musicians in the department at UCC, but all of a sudden, the level was lifted greatly. I'm going to go ahead and play it, and you're going to hear three different, you'll hear the full first version of the Music and Race seminar at UCC, and then there's a short snippet of my student Kyle McCauley, who's an amazing trad guitarist, his arrangement, his performance. And then a recent, this is the world premiere. It's now up on the Bandcamp page. You'll see the address on the video. Ophelia, an amazing MC, and DJ Just Me did a hip hop remix.
So we'll get that Bandcamp link. Sure, someone will stick it into any chat or anything that is visible, so everybody can check out the Bandcamp link and check out this song. So while you're getting that ready, Griff, thank you so much to Griff and Eimear and Brendan. We'll bring you all back in about 10-15 minutes for the final sort of Q&A with everybody. But yeah, we're going to hear this track, and we're going to have another little section of convo after this. We're going to bring in a few more people to discuss sort of bringing on from this kind of the social impact of music and the potential for change and music in a community setting. So enjoy the track.
Thanks, Donal.
Forward. Nobody cares the way that I do. It's in my bones, in the hue of my skin. I have no home, no place to begin. I have no home, no place to begin. I got a trunk full of books, and my eyes focus on the prize. A heavy load to carry, the fire in my eyes.
He was a patriot too. Many of his poems were filled with what in Irish is called sheer wrong. He made this poem in honor of his country.
Said we're gonna release a bunch of stuff in the coming weeks, so stay tuned. It's just, I think it's we've got it set to €1 a track where 100% of the proceeds go to NASC, especially on the what is it, the Bandcamp Fridays, first Fridays of the month. We just missed one last week, but
Thanks so much, Griff. Brilliant.
thank you very much. I'll pop this off. And send it
Great.
back
And for
to
anyone
you.
who can't see that, it's douglasweek.bandcamp.com. douglasweek.bandcamp.com. And as Griff just said, all proceeds are going to NASC. That's NASC, the Migrant and Refugee Rights Centre. So you check that out. There, I do believe there may be more music added from all these collaborations over the next few weeks and months, creating some kind of a Frederick Douglas album. So stay tuned for that. But I'm sure if you're in touch with all the social media accounts for Douglas Week, you'll see that stuff. So now we're going to have a little chat with Stevie G and Lesley Roy. So Stevie G is one of the leading DJs in Ireland and radio presenter, music promoter based in Cork. Lesley Roy is a songwriter and performer. She's written songs with Katy Perry and other chart-topping artists in the USA. She's Ireland's representative for Eurovision 2021, having also represented Ireland in 2020 with her own song, Story of My Life. So I'd like to start with Lesley. You're going to be representing Ireland, Eurovision 2021, in front of millions of TV viewers. It's such an incredible event, celebrating diversity across the world. So do you think pop music has a power to bring on social change?
Completely. I mean, I think pop music has been bringing on social change rapidly, like from the 60s. I mean, before the 60s onwards, I mean, what we even heard there, that was so beautiful. There's so much pop in that. And I think, you know, pop music, when you title anything pop music, can sometimes get a bad rep. A lot of people jump straight into cheesy bubblegum, simple songs that is so easy to create, yet so few people kind of jump into it. But I definitely believe pop music can be the forefront of so much social change for everybody.
And the song you wrote last year, and you know you're writing a song for this year as well, and you're getting ready to perform it. Can you tell us a little bit about that and the impact, like the response that song got last year?
Yeah, I mean, I think you know, it has had a huge impact on the Eurovision fans. And you know, for people joining us that don't know what the Eurovision is, it's a very historic European songwriting competition that's been out for, this is 65 years that it's been happening, and it is based around writing a fantastic pop song, but within that it has diversified so many different things. So yes, I was chosen. I had a song that I had in my back pocket, like a lot of songwriters and top liners, that I wanted to use and to do something with. I never quite found a home for it. And I also had always been in the back of my mind thinking about the Eurovision and representing Ireland, and also had from afar been watching where Ireland was being represented and kind of slip away from what I thought we were within the show and within the competition, and where we kind of were within pop music from my perspective. And I thought maybe I could bring something to help change that in a way I thought would be a direction to take it. So I brought home this extremely poppy top 40 song, and that was chosen, and it did reach a lot of new ground that we haven't been in touching for the last 10 years. It went top 20 here in Ireland, and we, you know, was in a lot of the different polls all over Europe. But unfortunately, due to COVID, it was cancelled for the first time in 65 years. So I began a completely different journey on trying to find a new song and take the new Irish fans that I feel like I had helped bring in and onto the table, and take them through a whole new journey and give them a new song, and continue to raise like Ireland's platform within this massive show of 180 million people. So I feel like we have established something new and helped rev Ireland back up again. And I hope I can continue to do that now and have a bit more of a jump off point, that the show hopefully will go ahead in a different capacity.
Yeah, and one of the big reasons why that song was so popular was the theme of sort of people expressing themselves and being able to be themselves. I think that was something that really captured the imaginations, and something maybe that we see in big events like Eurovision. Stevie, I'd love to bring you in, because you've worked with some of the biggest artists in the world who have come through Ireland, and like, you know, some of the biggest names. I mean, it's just incredible. But you also do so much work in the community as well. So I'd love to know, what are your thoughts on the music, and maybe the music that you're working on, to come into people's lives? And it's almost, it's a weird thing to try and say that it changes people's lives, because it's almost people's lives that change music, rather the other way around.
Yeah, it's interesting, because even bringing it to some of the conversations we had earlier, I remember as a huge fan of pop music. I mean, R&B and hip hop is probably what I'm best known for here. But I kind of resented some of the dialogue around Lemonade a few years ago, when it was almost saying that this was the first time like a Black woman have talked about things other than this bubblegum kind of theory. And like, when you look at the history of Black music, when you go back to Nina Simone, when you go back to Bessie Smith, we were talking about it earlier, this has always been there. And I also kind of resented the way sometimes with someone like Beyonce, it was almost like this feeling. I've seen I heard Denise Chala talk about this recently, this feeling that it was almost like she had to make this talk. Like, this doesn't happen when a white singer sometimes you don't have to be the spokesperson for the generation. Everyone waiting. I saw people waiting last summer for Kendrick Lamar to speak, for Beyonce to speak on this, and this doesn't happen when it's your regular white singer. So I kind of resented that. But and I also have to say, back in 1998 or whatever it was with Destiny's Child, Beyonce mightn't have been talking about social change or whatever, but it was very important music for even to be a black woman speaking, and lyrically and stuff. She was always on point. So I just wanted to say that at the start. But with our girl, it's mainly girls, but there's guys in the group now as well. It started off as 12, 13, 14-year-old, mostly black girls, but from all different kind of backgrounds of the migrant community, direct provision as well. We just we had 2 workshops with them earlier. We just try to tell them, just be yourself, embrace what you have, that whether it's from your background, that no one else has. Beyonce doesn't have it, Kanye doesn't have it. Lots of these people, their parents weren't born in Africa. They're not moving to this mad place, Ireland, with all this crazy opportunity of music that we've just heard there, even in the tracks Griff played or in the tracks that we've heard from everyone tonight, that we have got this kind of lyrical tradition, poetic tradition, music tradition, dance. There's so many similarities. So use whatever you have. If you're from Africa, if you're from Eastern Europe, if you're from Syria, you have something that no one else has. You, even by your age, by your name, by anything, you have something. So that's the way we always try to, particularly the girls, it's like, I'm really proud of the fact as a hip hop fan that that the women have more or less taken over, even in the pop charts. And again, I wouldn't dismiss it like that. Like, I know people of my generation, or even lots of people are very dismissive of someone like Cardi B or someone, and they don't get it. But you don't, Cardi B doesn't have to talk about Donald Trump to be making lots of important statements. So I feel very strongly about pop music and for it, like Lesley. And I actually only came across Lesley today tweeting about something that's very close to my heart, which I've written about as well. I'm trying to do my little bit on the radio about representation when it comes not only to diversity, because I'm probably a little bit too balanced because it's black music that I play mainly. So it's about 80% if you want to break it down. But with women, and it's always been all through my DJing career, the women have been of DJ with many of them, like Lauryn Hill and all these people, but they've always been to the fore, the Erykah Badu's. Now here in Ireland, we've got Tulu, we've got Denise, we've got C'est La Vie, we've got Loa, we've got Feda, we've got all these young kids from Cork that are coming through, like Charmaine and Atobe and stuff. But the representation on radio, when you look at the stats in Ireland and England and stuff, it's really embarrassing. How do you play music when it's 95% male, when there's the talent around? So I think that's something that's very important, and that goes across the festivals, because we all know radio and media and stuff, it is a self-fulfilling thing. I know if you're looking at charts, it's a kind of that's not the way you change. You actually, it's a bit like last summer when people who are involved with, will say, hip hop or black music or this culture, that I'm involved in, it was important for us to stand up when stuff was being talked about from a racial perspective. And it's the same when it comes to music. I'm not into percentages, I never have been, because I've actually seen people cover percentages by just playing an extra 20 U2 songs or whatever. And U2 are great, but let's face it, they don't need it as much as many of the women singing here. So that would be my little perspective. But with the kids, it's their voice, and it's just trying to give them that little bit of, they've all done a lot more by their teenage years than I had done, you know what I mean? And it's great, but there's so much more, and we want to see those voices and hear them out there more, and that will be the aim.
Absolutely. And the Irish Institute of Music and Song in Balbriggan, I mean, we've been talking to lots of kids, doing lots of workshops. Obviously everything's virtual at the minute. We're able to do lots of education work, but it's going to be an important few years in music. And as musicians, as music educators, there's a lot of ground to cover, and there's going to be so much material to work with. And a lot of the Balbriggan students are, talking about the song like the Lesley released last year, "Story of My Life," which helped a lot of people to see that it was okay to be themselves. It was okay to admit to something that they were maybe previously embarrassed about or previously ashamed of for whatever reason. And I think this is something that music can do for a lot of us. It can be very personal in terms of how we actually engage with it, but it's a hugely public thing, and it's something that is going to be very important for the recovery of the nation, for the recovery of the world over the next few months and years. But thank you so much, guys. I mean, we could keep going and talking about the social impact of music, about all these different things, but I'd love to hand back over to Sarah, and I know we've got some more music, and then I think we're going to go into a more of a panel discussion for the remainder of the session. So thanks again, guys. Over to you, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Donald. Thank you, Lesley. Thank you, Stevie. So we're going to hear two songs now that I think kind of nicely bookend our discussion about the social impact of music. I'm going to introduce the first one, and then I'm going to ask Stevie to jump in and introduce the second, because I know that's with some of the kids that Stevie's been working with in the Cork Migrant Centre, and we're going to get to hear another song about freedom tonight. So the first I'm going to introduce, and this is by a Canadian musician called Don Maple, who's currently living in Northern Ireland. And there's a great interview with Don available on our website where he describes kind of in some detail the thought behind the song. So do check that out if you can at our website, www.douglasincork.com. And Don Maple wrote this song in response to the Black Lives Matter movement and the murder of George Floyd. I think it's very impactful, and it says a lot about silence. Don talks about this on the website, about how it comes from this proverb that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So the song is called The Roads That We Pave. So it has a lot to say about silence. And I think this is a theme that's been coming up this week in terms of how we can work towards being actively anti-racist and acknowledge white privilege. So we're going to hear The Roads That We Pave now, and then Stevie is going to introduce the next song, Freedom. So hopefully that'll be appearing soon. I'm not getting any sound at the moment, guys. This should also be playing from about 6:34 onwards.
Precinct police building where the 4 fired officers worked was at the center of the anger.
Walking on these roads that lead in, and they're paved with good intentions. So lost, too long, the trail's gone. Think we're heading in the wrong direction. Along these roads that lead in and go, and they're paved with good intentions. So lost, too long, the trail's gone. I think we're heading in the wrong direction. Buried deep in our eyes, there's unease in a siren now. Let your words start a fire, and your silence only puts them out. Don't let them put you down. Don't let them have their doubts. I once was lost, but now I'm found. You said you want peace, wanna hold the world up with your own peace. Hands up, marching in the street. Hands up, down on your knees. Put down your weapon, kick it with your feet. Respect the amendment, die or live free. Camp warfare made at the CDC. Maybe the devil get elected, temptation gonna have you eating fruit off the tree. And I know that you need some education that the system can provide without writing you back. Yeah. These roots run deep and you fall asleep at it's white how you be so left. If you be so right, promoting a capitalist bench with social injustice just to protect the sales cap through protests and jail raps. I've been this, I've been that. A good heart's got payback, a bad heart's got aim at you. Abuse that paycheck. Retaliation, miseducation. It fills you with hatred.
Now I'm filled with hatred, I'm sick and I'm tired of working with liars and violence and violence. I'm done with the crime, done with the preaching, done with the peaceful suppressing these feelings. Start up the anthem, y'all take the knee, roll right on our necks and the country can't breathe. Gasping for representatives of a tweet, another innocent man, no matter place.
For 8 minutes and 46 seconds, including 2 minutes and 53 seconds after Floyd had become unresponsive. According to the charging documents, police were responding to a call of Floyd using a counterfeit $20 bill. During the attempt to put a handcuffed Floyd into the police car, the defendant pulled Mr. Floyd out of the passenger side of the squad car, held him with a knee to the neck. At one
Okay, everyone, I think we got covered.
prosecutor says the preliminary autopsy does not support that Floyd died from strangulation. Benjamin Crump represents Floyd's family.
They were very clear in their position that it should be first-degree murder charges and the other officers should be arrested.
Okay, everyone, that was Don Maple, The Roads That We Pave. Really powerful piece of music there, and sort of about how music can help us express this frustration of being an individual in this world, you know, this racist patriarchal world. So I think it's a really powerful piece of music. And as I say on the website, there's a full interview with Don where he talks a little bit about how he wrote the song and what was behind that, so you can check that out as well. And now I suppose the other side of the social impact of music, whenever we think about communities coming together, Stevie, if you can introduce the next piece for us, which is another song about freedom from some of the kids at the Cork Migrant Centre.
Yeah, myself and Raphael, who's spoken word artist as well, and featuring on some of our events. We work with the kids on the music and writing and production side. Now, we dedicated the last 5 or 6 months just to Frederick alone, and it was just so rewarding for us, for the kids. And they dived in. I thought they might be, there were a lot, they just went for it like in a big way. Ugonna did some pieces that she created herself, spoken herself. Loads of them have just come up with artwork, and it's just so amazing to see that generation just going hell for leather. And it just shows the importance of, and I love the way Frederick is connecting, you know what I mean, with that generation particularly. So yeah, we just did, I mean, a lot of it is online. We've only really been getting to the studio in the last week or two, so lots of the stuff is in progress. But by the time the album comes out, or even for some of the other periphery projects, like we're going to be doing some remixes. I do a lot of spoken word DJing stuff. That's one of my, so there's so much material I've been sampling in the last couple of weeks. Even I've been sampling some of the chats we've had today. So yeah, we just got some of the kids to talk about what freedom meant. I think on the one we're going to play, I think I put Amanda Gorman's speech on Donald's suggestion. And we've got to finish it. It's only a demo. The beat, I think, was done by O'Deasy, a young producer from Cork.
And Stevie, weren't some of the kids, you know, obviously before lockdown and everything, you know, people were in the studio, but like some of the kids, they've been just recording on their phones and stuff.
Yeah, this is voice memo, so this is just really like the quality and all that. And I think, oh yeah, I wrote a poem inspired by Frederick about the knowledges, the pathway to freedom. And Mirabelle, a young, she actually rapped it, but we couldn't get around to doing that. I'm not sure if the video's ready yet, but basically, yeah, that's what, like, it's all of these kids who are from like direct provision or from the migrant community of Cork, just getting their voices across, and even their accents, you know, because it goes back to what we were saying about we're pretty proud of of just trying to tell them basically use your accent and stuff. And I remember when, like, because Ireland has only really had like mass immigration for 20 years. I remember running like hip hop nights back in, say, circa 2000, when the direct provision system was coming in, and even African friends of mine didn't have that kind of like, and it's the same, that pride or whatever, it's the same as many Irish people through our history. There's a reason why I'm speaking English. I said that in the workshop earlier, you know, there's a reason we speak English is our first language, so to speak, here. So there's a lot of different sort of situations, complex situations, and there's a different pride. There's people now with brilliant like mixture of African and Cork voices, like Rafa, he's speaking in Irish and some of his stuff. Junior's got a great like mix of Cork, Nigeria. So this whole melting pot, like we did a whole workshop on it earlier, and it's great. I think we have the video, so we're gonna just roll. Again, it's only a demo, but you know what? It's all good.
It's all about, I think that's the thing tonight, we're sharing a lot of works in progress, you know. As I said, it's not Douglas week, it's Douglas year, Douglas century. So we're just,
and we've spoken, this is just a spoken piece, by the way. We've got brilliant singers that we'll be showcasing very soon as well. But yeah, I think the guys are ready to roll.
Yeah, they should be. And yeah, I was just going to say, also Paul's heard this and had
lockdown means a lot of the work has been taking place on Zoom. For this next little piece, the teenagers' words are basically married to some of the words of Frederick Douglas and Amanda Gorman from her recent powerful speech at the Biden inauguration. We've got a Toby, Shelton is in here as well as Josh, Elton, Ugonna, Mirabelle, Light, and also Charmaine. They're all speaking about some of their views on freedom through the eyes of Frederick Douglass and himself.
Freedom is being able to be who you are without judgment. Freedom is the ability to travel anywhere without fear.
Freedom is being able to love whoever and whenever without being judged.
Freedom is the ability to achieve what you want to achieve.
Knowledge is a pathway from slavery to freedom.
Freedom is having a choice.
Freedom is a road seldom traveled by the multitude.
Freedom is being able to express yourself in any way you want through clothes, music, style, etc., etc. Knowledge is a pathway from slavery to freedom.
There is always light if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it.
Freedom is being able to be who you are without judgment. Knowledge is a pathway from slavery to freedom.
Freedom is being able to love whoever and whenever without being judged.
Freedom is the ability to travel anywhere without fear.
Freedom is having a choice.
You think we are free now, but we're often still slaves. Our ignorance manifests in many different ways. Only through knowledge we will see what we can become. Knowledge is a pathway from slavery to freedom. Knowledge is a pathway from slavery to freedom.
One thing is certain. If we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright.
Freedom is a road seldom traveled by the multitude.
Freedom is the ability to achieve what you want to achieve.
When they see him teaching all of the other slaves, the plantation owners became enraged. Stop us from learning, then we won't run. Knowledge is the pathway from slavery to freedom.
The final couple of clips were recorded at the cabin with GMC, where Charmaine did her first gig before Christmas. She recently returned with Rafa, and you can hear Josh emceeing on this as well. And the final one from a Tobe, from a duet with Paul Noonan of Bell X1. It's only a demo. We recorded it last summer at a workshop. I hope you enjoyed our contribution to Douglas Week.
Speak to me in words unspoken, shout it out above the tree. Speak to me with silence broken, share with me the life you lead. Unspoken, shout it out above the tree. Speak to me with silence broken, share with me the life you lead.
Was divided, we don't share the same pain. Been hurt, bruised up until my eyelids make it rain. Forever constrained, spit us out like sugar cane. My world's moving forward and backwards like subway trains.
You are love from the same way.
She made it to the new world.
take over. Waste the vulture road, wondering where did she go wrong? She lies in fear at night, smiling through the daylight, thinking I just want to belong. Ndifuna ukwazi ukuba senzeni na. You know my blood runs the same red.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Stevie. I think you're on mute.
I should have mentioned that they were performing in front of their artwork that we did in Annonagel Place and with the Glucksman in Cork City Library. So it's all their art, their pictures, their identity, their voice. And even the last little bit, Vukunu, I can't pronounce it, but Atobe, who encouraged her, that song is about migration. And we were just encouraging her to speak that little bit of Southern African vibe that she had that none of us have. And I forgot as well that when I was their age, I heard that quote that Griffin, I'm sure a few more of you will know. And I just thought like the Public Enemy sampled "Freedom is a Road, I seldom travel." It's from Wattstax by the Barcades, but I never realized till like 3 weeks ago that it was a Frederick Douglas quote. So it's amazing how it comes full circle. And that set me on a pathway through soul and jazz and stuff from Public Enemy. So it just goes to show that the education, you know, it's not just the young ones who are getting educated. But they're all great, and that's just all demos. Charmaine, Atobe, but we'll definitely produce some good stuff, and everyone's inspired by this project, and they're just watch this space, I guess.
Absolutely, thank you so much, Stevie. Okay, if we can get everyone in now, we'll round it off, because it's been so great to talk to you all tonight. I'd love to get just a very brief kind of final thought, maybe from Ken, just about what you've heard tonight and how if you've enjoyed all the music.
This has really been just very moving evening, and to know that our great ancestor, I won't say my, because my daughter Nicole is on, and Nicole, your song was incredible, beautiful. I loved it. Paul, thank you, and Nikhil, thank you for giving her an opportunity to be able to showcase what she can do. But to know that our great ancestor is still inspiring people more than 200 years after his birth and across the Atlantic. And I think what's most moving for me this evening, and it was a great way to end, was with the voices of those young people using their talent, their passion, their creativity, and their mind, their intellect, to create this beautiful art and this beautiful music. I look forward to hearing more, and just this whole week, I know there's still a little bit more to go, but this whole week to see that so many people are being impacted by the life of our ancestor, and he's continuing to inspire to this day. So thank you all very much. Thanks everybody for your contributions, for just making this happen. It's just been such a great experience for me.
Thank you so much, Ken, and thank you everyone for being here. It's just so great to hear all of your perspectives, and it's been wonderful to be in such esteemed company, and just everybody coming from all over the world with music education perspectives, classical music, pop music, hip hop. Yeah, it's been fantastic. So I think we're gonna finish if we can with one more track. We just really want to squeeze this in because this is the Irish Institute of Music and Song's specially commissioned song for Douglas Week, so we had to include it there somewhere. So Donal, if you want to kind of set this one up, and we can all just kind of close our eyes and meditate and lean into the last song of the evening.
Yeah, sure. Thanks again for everyone. Lovely to be a part of this panel and to meet you all, and for everybody watching YouTube and watching back. It's a real privilege again. So the Irish Institute of Music and Song, we were lucky to get the opportunity to write a song, a commission for Douglas Week, a piece inspired by Douglas. So Nikhil and Paul stayed with us in Balbriggan as our artists in residence last month, and as part of that we forced them into a room and we wrote a song with them. Well, I wasn't there. I'm actually in isolation at the minute, so I did everything via Zoom. So that was just an interesting process in itself. But so we worked on some lyrical stuff, some musical ideas, and I suppose there's a lot of overlap in what we've already heard. Looking back on maybe Irish characters who have had similar experiences to some of the things that came up tonight, and obviously Douglas and what he experienced when he came through to Ireland in 1845. So it was a real fascinating process to do this now in 2021, but then just looking back and trying to absorb the art, to absorb all the stories in there, and this is kind of what we came up with. So I must mention Michael Dawson, who's not with us tonight, but Michael, you'll hear him on the keys and singing a wee bit in the background as well. So he would have loved to have been here. He's watching.
And Hugh Clark singing a tiny bit.
And Hugh Clark as well, who has been mentioned already. He was our recording engineer and helped produce the track, and he's singing too. So thanks to Hugh and Michael. And just to say, while the video is being processed, it was recorded in our campus in the Irish Institute of Music and Song in Balbriggan. I recorded from home. Over to you.
The very promising first note, Donal.
Yeah, so that I recorded it virtually in isolation, and then the rest of the guys put it together in the studio setting. So this is my voice you'll hear.
For many's the long mile I take to the low road, but there's nowhere I'll manage for to lighten my load. I drink as the bittern cries out at the lakeside. I'll go up to the rock where by night I must hide.
I've been on the road, hiding for what seems like forever. Oh, don't know where it's gonna lead me, Lord, but I know I need to stay low. I'm so tired, I need to rest. All I got is this cold clay for a bed. Spider crawls up my leg. Hold still. I'm not ready for heaven yet. No, I'm not ready for heaven. Yeah. I see your feet are burning while you're running. Keep on running, brother. Keep on. Do you feel free, brother? With your stomach churning, running, keep on running. Can't get tired now, brother. Keep on running, keep on running. You can sleep in the riverbed, yeah, but you gotta get up and keep it running. Not ready for heaven yet.
Through her eyes,
you've taken the past, you've taken the future.
until I
forgot to say that was Sarah Rogers on fiddle as well. Sarah is one of our team members, so couldn't forget her.
No words needed. I think that's a mic drop moment, Donal. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. It's been a pleasure to have you. Keep coming to all the Douglas Week events. We're still going strong until Sunday. It's an honor to be here with you. Have a great evening or a great rest of your day if you're stateside. Thanks a million.
Thank you. That was great.
Bravi, everyone. Yay.
Amazing.
Bye, lovely people.
Bye.
Nobody
Bye-bye.
wants to leave.
Great job.